like dynamic 4, right? So this is riff B dynamic 4. This is the moment you've all been waiting for, right? This is what the whole song builds up to. So check that. Good, good, good. All right, so we're going to talk about form and composition in today's office hours. Let's get straight into it. Initialize that audio, son. Yeah, it's like, okay, screen recording while you're running a Logic session, and also it's live, so I'm using my internet also. This uses a lot of RAM, so that just might mean it stutters every so often. It's going to be fine. But here's a big takeaway, okay? 3 riffs, okay? So this is how form is reverse engineered. You just start with the first riff, right? What's the first riff? This is the first riff. We're going to call this one Riff A, okay? Riff A. Here we go. You see what I mean, right? Stutters, right? You just heard Riff A, right? Now, we can already see, look, riff A comes here, it comes here, it also comes here 2 times in a row, okay? So we see it 3 total times. Well, what's in between in the other riffs we'll talk about in a second, but just notice, like, the seed of the whole song happens 3 times. On the 3rd time, it's double the length. And let's also acknowledge the length, 338. Maybe it's going to end up being a little longer than that, but around 344, something like that. That's the whole length, right? So we see riff A, you just heard it. Now let's hear riff B. Now riff B is the riff where there's many variations, okay? And by variations, I don't mean within the riff, I mean within the dynamic. Right? So riff B has 3 or 4 total dynamics, doesn't even matter, but it's like, okay, let's listen to one dynamic of riff B, right? So this is the intro. The song starts on riff B as the intro. So obviously it's not going to be like loud and crazy. Well, it could be, but basically you'll see riff B as the intro builds into riff A as like that thing we just listened to, right? So now what happens before we drop that huge riff A seed? It's this version of riff B. Check this out. System overload. Yeah, I saw that coming 1,000 miles away. Don't worry. This one's such a banger, dude. That vibe. Isn't that sick? Riff B. We can even look closely into this, right? Like, what is Riff B? Riff B, the best way to explain it is it's just a fragment of Riff A, right? This is a fragment. Riff A and B start the same. So Riff A, you can see, it's a 3 and a 4, right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you got a 7 to start the riff. The riff is like starting on a 7 that's divided as a 3, 4. And then let's just see how, is that what we have here? Yeah, it's a 3. Yeah, it is a 4, right? So that's a 4, right? See how that is? On top of that, you got the melody. But listen to this melody. Look at this. So deep story, right? Get ready for this. So Khalil, right? In the school, Khalil. You know Khalil Grimes.
Here we go.
Sick. He wrote this melody. He gave me permission to use it, but he wrote this melody. So how did he write this melody? He wrote it because I showed him the A section. I showed him the seed riff. I showed him that thing. With the T high. You know, that's the simple sing-song symmetrical melody on the top. But then down here, it's literally a special accent T high. And that's why right now the song's called Special Accent. We'll see. But Anyway, the main riff is based on that special accent T-high that I actually wrote with Trevor and Mervin. We were on the call. We wrote this riff live, put that melody on top, just use a special accent framework, special accent T-high framework, put that melody, and then I showed Khalil, and then Khalil just wrote this riff, wrote this melody on the spot, right? Just the melody only. And the parameter was just, make it a symmetrical melody, meaning like you kind of have like a call and then you have a response, right? That's kind of the difference. You can just hear that. So it's like, here's the call. And compare that to response. Froze. Yeah, good old system overload. All right. But you see what's going on, right? You see the idea. Okay. So then the riff, I just wrote the riff to accompany the melody. That's all I did. Like, the melody hits that good old flat 3. You want to accompany that real nice, so you're playing flat 3 in the riff and at the melody. It's perfect. And this is where actually Khalil and I thought of this together too. Is like within the riff there's a call and response too. Here's a call, right? And then compare that to over here. Just those subtleties. And then that was kind of based off of just like listening to riff A, right? So that's one level of continuity there. And then making sure riff B had some references to riff A in it, right? Like even a little goes a long way. And that's what you hear right there. It's just that 7. That's a 3-4. They both start with a 7. That's a 3-4. Simple. And it's both like obviously the same key, same minor pentatonic, like almost exactly the same, just slightly different in terms of like note choice, in terms of frequency of notes. That's basically it. But here's the thing, you're going to hear this riff B, you're going to hear riff B in the other dynamics, right? We said, so riff B has multiple dynamics. Riff A is usually, I think in this piece, I'm pretty sure, it's always at the same dynamic, right? It's always like huge, massive, full bore stuff. Okay, so here's the other riff, right? Riff C. That's riff C. It's so simple that it's hilarious. Look at it. All right, it's a fragment of the first riff, right? Notice what it is it's that 3 again, right? It's that 3. And then instead of doing a 7, it's just another 3. It's the 1 chord, and there's that like power chord, like doop-oo-dat, bang. Like that's just enough to connect it. But as opposed to, the other 2 riffs, riff A and B, this note, it starts right here, right? It's still the same note. It's still the flat 3rd of the key. It just starts in a different spot, and boom, now it's perfect. That's plenty of variation. But now I want to show you riff C. Okay, so we've got riff A, riff B, and riff C right now, right? Look at this version of riff C. So riff C only happens here, right? So the idea with riff C is it comes after the A section, after the seed riff, the A section, right? So it's like A section, and then it hits riff C, right? Chill out, and then you're in the verse. The verse is riff B, but let's check out riff C again. Let's check out the other riff C because it's really interesting. So over here, look at this. This is riff C again. That's the big moment. This song is like, when I first wrote that riff and like listened back to it objectively, I was like, oh man, dude, this thing just busted open a wormhole right here. So I'm crafting it, and I think I got the form just on point, dude. I think I really do. All right, now you see the 3 riffs, and then riff D, the anomaly secret riff, right? And there's a new melody over it. It's literally a Coltrane sequence. The melody is a Coltrane sequence. Like I can even just quickly look at that. Look at this melody, right? 1 flat 3, 2 flat 9, 1 flat 3, flat 6, flat 2. That melody. That is so good, dude. All right. Yeah, so anyway, now you see the form, okay, right? Form. Let's talk about this form now. So you get all three riffs right away. That's important because you want to introduce all riffs as soon as possible. Now that's completely contradicted by riff D over here. What the hell is up with this? It was a flat out intuition. So that's a different level. We'll talk about that later. But right now you see in the beginning, you've got all three riffs introduced right away. And now everything that's ever going to happen has been heard, minus some variations, obviously. But then the verse, right? So this is the verse. The verse is just the other dynamic of riff B. So riff B has 4 dynamics. So we just heard, this is dynamic 1, the intro. Now it's riff B as the verse, dynamic 2. The form makes too much sense, right? This is so basic, right? So now you just hit riff B again. And notice how, you just hit riff A again. And notice how every time you hit riff A, riff B is before it. Well, at least in the first time you repeat riff A, right here where the cursor is, once we get back to riff A, it makes sense that we came from riff B because that's what happens the first time. So the precedent is just there. Now that we've corroborated the precedent, we have license to potentially do a variation, starting to juxtapose different transitions. Right, dude? Because the first time you're going riff A to the verse of riff B, but in between you're going to riff C. But look what happens here, dude! You go from riff A straight to riff B! This is one of the best. This is why this song is potentially one of the best songs I've ever composed in this kind of fashion. Because this form is so good. Now, I've thought of things like this before, where it's like, okay, the first time you go from riff A to riff B, there's something in between, and then it picks up the pace a little bit because you just skip that in-between thing and go straight to riff B. It has that effect of like, time is passing you by, son! And that is actually what this song reminds me of, dude. Oh, dude! It's a time song, right? It's about time. This song is like, time flying by, or whatever, dude. That's why it's a process, man. When you want to bring a whole song to fruition like this, man, there's nothing like it. Like, it's a different, I understand some people are like, oh, I'm not going to just tinker away at this thing. This is sculpture, right? And at the end, with the lyrics, right? The lyrics are the big thing, right? So I'm just setting the stage to write these epic, like paradigm-shattering, life-affirming lyrics. That's what this is all setting up to be. And so the better the form is, the easier it's going to be to do that. Or the better the arrangement, the better everything, the easier it is to write those lyrics. And that's what I'm thinking in the back of my head right now. And I'm asking myself, what does this song make me think of? It makes me think of like time and stuff, right? So this little transition from riff A to riff B, where there's no riff C in between, it's like, yo, you missed it. Remember, it was there last time. Now things are different. You don't have time for that stuff anymore. But then it like comes back later, but it's different. It's twice the length. Like, oh man! But I love this effect right here. You'll hear exactly what I mean. You know what I'm saying, right? It's just got that different effect right there. It's like, oh, better move along here. But then look at this. B section for the second phrase of the verse, and then a third B section. I mean, a third repeat of the B riff, right? Look at this. Here it's just, 1, 2, you're done. Over here it's 1, 2, 3. And then you go to riff C. Form. It's how it, that's what's going to make or break everything. This is a really good form, and it's simple. It's so simple, but it's like, it's always kind of surprising what section is next, but it's, even though it's surprising, it's familiar too, because you introduced all the sections in the beginning. So it's like, which section is it going to be? And then when you hear the section, it's going to hit hard every time because it is familiar at that point. So coming from riff B into sort of like, this is like, I do these sections a lot. It's like the interlude to the big moment, like kind of the interlude between the first and the second half of the song. Like, this is all the first half of the song. Now here's the like interlude before the second, and it's more than, it's obviously not half. They're not, well, they're pretty close. So you see like the halfway point basically, and then this is the ending part of the song. And you'll notice they completely changed because right here, now we have full bore, like it's getting rowdy, it's getting louder here, right? So this is the A section, right? Happening twice. There's going to be some big vocals here. This is a massive moment. Like maybe no vocals first time, vocals second time, or reverse. We'll find out. I got time. Time is helping me to craft this thing into an absolute masterpiece here. And then guess what? This is it, right? This is where it's sick, right? Riff B again. Third variation of riff B now, right? This is the third variation of riff B, and there's a fourth one right here. Check out riff B right here. That's a guitar solo, dude. That's a guitar solo. You can see why this is just going to absolutely just stomp, right? Whew. The way that you return to this A section, which is so good. It just is just good. It's a good little piece of music to really use, right? And it builds up this massive moment. And there's so much precedent for going from the A section to the B section. So that's what happens here is you go from the A section to the B section, and the vibe is rowdy. It's super strong. Like, what do you want? It's either going to be rapping or soloing. And I'm going for soloing because I think I actually need more like intergalactic scope. Like I can't use like the English language here. I'm going to need to use like the musical language of the intergalactics. So that's the texture for the solo. But you already know. You already know, right? Oh man. But you see the form though. Form is the first level. See how that came together? It's not a simple explanation. One of the only explanations is really just that it just works. See, I don't have a system for getting a form this perfect. This just happens. Because it's not that hard to move and mix and test and try stuff when you're using a DAW, right? So I can try stuff. But I know that if I have 3 good things, then I'll be fine, right? No matter what, it's going to be sick. And oftentimes 2 is enough. That's the thing, right? And notice how the third is like barely anything. The third riff is always like riff C is always like nothing. It's like like I know that was probably not in time with the because it's like that delay feedback thing, but it's like do ba do dum ba do ba do ba do bam do that, right? Versus the other riffs are like, whoa, like upside down, like, and then finally you should have like a normal riff. That's classic riff C. And what I thought might happen is that riff C would be actually one of the big riffs, and it actually might be like the grand finale riff. So that's kind of an interesting thing is like sometimes the simplest riff ends up being your grand finale riff. And then if you hide that simple riff like early on in like a little transition like this, that can be a really, really powerful, like, full circle kind of thing. But in this tune, it was just that B section riff, that riff B with Khalil melody, and then I wrote the riff to accompany the Khalil melody. That is one of the coolest things ever in terms of like a musical idea. So to me, it makes sense that you get to hear it at 4 different dynamics, and it ends up being the final conclusion, right? So like let's see if we can hear this. Just because you haven't heard that. I don't think I played the grand finale. Like dynamic 4, right? So this is riff B dynamic 4. This is the moment you've all been waiting for, right? This is what the whole song builds up to. So check that. Right? And so that little bit in the end, I don't know if that's how it's going to be, if that's how it's going to end. I think it's going to end on the B section, like this B riff. It's going to end there. But I don't know if it's going to be that instrumentation, right? So there's still some things to figure out. So there's the solo here, which I've been practicing. Got to get that guitar solo. Got to do something here. I don't know what's going to happen here. I was thinking maybe a vocal sample. Maybe like Miles Davis talking about Halloween or something. Something like that. I need a vocal part here. Like, I think there's gonna be some rapping. You guys know Alex Montoya. Like, that's my alias on SoundCloud currently, and he's a rapper. I know it's like, what? But check out some Alex Montoya.
Space, time, and money. The holy trinity of governmentality mandating the basement of currency. Baked into the cake since the 1770s. Subjugation of the population by way of inflation. Just another technique to facilitate enslavement. Keep you complacent, debilitated from upward mobility. A weight is placed upon your back. Psychological attack forever protected under my tinfoil hat. Praising the Lord, moving in faith, rising above, creating in love, spreading abundance all over the Lord's creation. Eliminating any authority, illegitimate, rebalancing the power, delivering it back to the masses. Eradicating all that entraps us, reallocating our capital, practice relaxing, pull it back even farther, establish a discipline of heart-based initiatives, forever protected under a tinfoil hat.
That track Philanthropist, have you heard that? So yeah, that's Alex Montoya. Anyway, so there's a huge rapping element to like my songwriting identity right now. And so I'm going to be definitely adding some rap on probably at least like potentially the second half of the first verse could be rap. And then rap right away on the second verse. Right? And then singing here. Or more rapping. And then singing or more rapping, right? Here, don't know if there needs to be any vocal. Just get that chill out. Maybe some like, yo, show me some of that counterpoint. You know, some like ad-lib, right? And then, yeah. I don't know yet. That's the point. I don't know yet. But, that's where it's headed, though. I'm just crafting that, letting that one cook real good in the oven. It's getting ripe, getting ready. Good. I think this is a good one for you. Think about form, think about composition. You just zoomed all the way out. How does it work? You just establish riffs using the rhythmic frameworks. You deconstruct those to make other riffs, and then you just make a form sequence using like different dynamics on certain riffs, and then just think logically about which riffs are good with which dynamics. And then every so often you'll find yourself in a situation where one riff can be played at any dynamic. And that's like, oh, that's how you know you just wrote like the greatest riff of all time kind of thing. So it's like that same logic with jazz standards. Like a good jazz standard is one that you can play at any tempo, including fast and a ballad and everything in between. So I think that's how a good riff is. It can be played at any dynamic. I don't know about any tempo. Tempo is huge. Tempo is like everything. Tempo is in rock. Tempo is everything. In jazz, tempo is like throw it out. No one cares. You can change tempos anytime you want. But in rock, tempo is everything. Your ability to play accurate tempos is like nuts. And I think it gets really good by working in the DAW and just doing this kind of stuff that I'm doing. You know, recording those riffs, right? That was fun. All right, good.